Today on Bearing Scars, WWE wrestler and American Gladiator, Matt Morgan.
Seeing guys in the locker room, when one of the guys would come in with some painkillers, they'd like shake it up and everybody would like follow the guy into a room. It's like a Pied Piper. It was crazy.
The 7-foot giant of a man discusses his toughest opponent, addiction.
I'm Matt Morgan. I'm big and tall. I'm stronger and heavier than everybody. So when it says take one every 4 hours, they really mean take two.
Now, nearly 2 decades sober, Matt discusses his legacy, helping others to overcome their addictions.
I started getting the boys in the locker room clean, be a part of their plan of getting them their life back. So at the end of the day, ironically enough, as a former pro wrestler, I would argue that's my heavyweight championship. And I'm thinking, shoot, this is it. I'm dead. This is how it ends for me, in an Italian bathroom.
Inside and out, everyone you know has got 'em. Your mom and dad and all your friends. Enjoy your scars, scars, scars. Enjoy your scars.
Welcome to this edition of Bearing Scars. I'm your host, Michael Ertel. Bearing Scars is more than a podcast. We're having raw discussions with those who have gone from prison to prominence, from debilitating addiction to public adoration, from youthful indiscretion to business dominance, and from career-ending scandal to a redefining of their life's work. Today, we're going to meet Matt Morgan. 7 feet tall, 300 and some odd pounds. He is a former professional wrestler with World Wrestling Entertainment, as well as with Total Nonstop Action Wrestling. In his community, he's an elected official at the city level and the Orlando Recovery Center's Senior Community Outreach Coordinator. Today, we're going to learn a little bit of the details of what goes on backstage in the world of professional wrestling, but we're also going to learn a lot of what happens front and center in the addiction counseling community. Matt Morgan is a giant of a man, and you're about to meet him today on Bearing Scars. Matt Morgan, welcome to Bearing Scars. How are you doing, sir?
Doing good. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Oh my goodness. You are our second guest for a reason, because one of the things we wanted to do was to be able to build our audience, and the way to build the audience is by having somebody who has his own internal audience ready, because most of the folks who are listening and watching this know who Matt Morgan is. They know you from American Gladiators. They know you from the WWE. They know you from the work that you do in your local community. But let's get to know a little bit more about the Matt Morgan that folks may not know about. And so the way I'm going to ask you to tell me about your background is by asking you a very simple question. What did you want to be when you grew up?
Professional wrestler.
For day one.
Well, no, to be fair, my mom tells me when I tell that story that it wasn't until about 5 years old I started saying I wanted to be a wrestler. Mm-hmm. But technically, she said the very first thing I ever said I wanted to be when I was in kindergarten was a fire truck.
The truck itself.
I swear to God, a fire truck itself.
So how big a boy were you in kindergarten versus the rest of the kids?
Probably big enough to be a fire truck, no, but I always had this one kid stare at Pixley was his name. He was always a couple inches taller than me, mm-hmm. until we hit about, I want to say 7th grade. And then I started getting really, really obnoxiously tall.
Right. And then, so in 7th grade, when did you start playing basketball? Because obviously you were 7 feet tall, and billed at 7 feet tall. You're a big man, more than 300 pounds. When did you start playing basketball? And clearly you weren't a point guard.
I probably fancied myself on that. Right. Grab my coach's nuts. I started playing basketball at the Wakeman Boys and Girls Club in Connecticut, Southern Connecticut. I want to say I was 6 years old.
Mm-hmm. That's fantastic. And so you were always the center, I'm assuming, right? And then you played basketball through high school, through college. You went to the college championship series. You went to March Madness one year, right?
Yeah, my freshman year at Monmouth University is the first time in our school's history we made the 1996 March Madness NCAA tournament, where we got spanked by Marquette in the first round. But
and then you went from Monmouth to you switched colleges. Yeah. Where'd you go?
To Chaminade University in Honolulu.
What sent you to Hawaii?
One, I didn't want to sit out a year for transferring, which you'd have to do if you went from D1 to D1.
Oh, okay.
So I transferred out to Division II. I want to look for a good Division II school where I could still be seen by NBA scouts, and that was Chaminade, which hosted the Maui Invitational every November season. And we got to play number one Duke, all these number ranked teams that were way better than us, but at least I got scouted by the NBA doing so.
And did you do well in those games that you were playing? I mean, I know you.
Yeah, no, I good enough to get 2 tryouts in the NBA eventually. Yeah.
You're in college in Hawaii. You're doing several things. You get a degree in communications, of course, because you're a smart guy. People are going to figure that out as they're listening and watching this. But something else happened when you were down in Hawaii. What else happened while you were down in Hawaii that became a fairly important facet of your life?
Met my eventual wife, my wife Larissa Morgan.
And how'd you meet her?
Met her my first day on campus, believe it or not. She was a softball player on NCAA scholarship, and I was a basketball player on scholarship. And so the athletes would always have to get to the dorms first for the first week of orientation. And I met her in the parking lot one time, and another time I met her coming out of a room. I was going to visit one of my teammates. She was walking out with her twin sister and smacked right into my chest, and that's how I met her.
Right.
Fell in love.
Love at first. Do you believe in love at first sight?
I do because of that, yeah.
Did she believe in love at first sight?
Probably not. She was probably intimidated by me. I was looking like a complete meathead, you know.
Did you have a gold chain? You didn't have the gold chain to complete the whole.
I would have. Let me tell you something, Mike. Back in the late '90s, I would have killed to be able to afford a gold chain.
Nice. But you were doing pretty good. I mean, during your entire life cycle, and obviously everybody has issues. You really had everything that you went for, you got. Everything you aimed for, you got. You wanted to be a basketball player, you became a basketball player. You wanted to excel in the classroom, you excelled in the classroom. You wanted to get a degree, you got a degree. You wanted to eventually, as you stated, become a professional wrestler. You became a professional wrestler. How did that come about?
So I was in college in Hawaii. I'd come home in the summer times, and I would work at the highway department in Fairfield, Connecticut, my hometown. And I work in the highway department during the daytime, and at nighttime I bounce at a bar called the Sea Grape. And in walks this WWE magazine editor, and so I knew the name. I didn't know what the guy looked like, but he introduced himself to me at the door. He's like, "Do you ever think about wrestling?" I'm like, "Yeah, I watch it every week. I'm addicted to it. Yes, but how do you do it?" And he's like, "Well, I work for Titan Towers. WWE headquarters is what that was called at the time. Now they have a new location." But at Stamford, Connecticut, 2 towns over from where I'm from in Fairfield. Every Friday night, he's like, "Come with me. I'm going to get you into our Titan Towers WWE headquarters gym. It's like their corporate gym." And Vince McMahon works out there, at the time, the owner of WWE. And he was like, "He's got to see you, man. I'm telling you, he's got to see you." I'm like, "All right." So for the next 6 months, every Friday night, I'm spending at that gym working out, hoping to bump into McMahon at the right time that he's working out. Finally, I do. And looks me up and down. He's like, "How tall are you, son?" I'm like, 7 feet. He's like, "How much you weigh?" And at the time, I was way bigger than I am now. At the time, I was like 382 pounds.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah.
I was a moose, a little bit fat, too. And he's like, "Did you ever think about wrestling?" I'm like, "Yeah. I've been trying to, hopefully bump into you." And Marco Torelli, one of your lead writers for your magazine, wanted to introduce us. And he's like, "Well, we got a show that's on MTV. It's going to be called Tough Enough." Turns to Marco and goes, "Hey, Marco, you should introduce him to Kevin Kelly and Dr. Tom Pritchard and all these other people and have him send his tape in and see what we can do with it." And I was like, wow, I thought that was a home run, right? So I send the audition tape in for this reality show that was going to be coming up in the future on MTV called WWF Tough Enough. And so I sent it in for season 1, and nobody's called me. 6 months go by. The series is already aired on. It's like halfway through the season, I guess, through season 1. They haven't picked a winner yet. And I get a call from MTV saying, "Hey, we'd like to cast you on WWF season 2 of Tough Enough on MTV." Mm-hmm. So I was like, "Oh, hell yeah." So at the time I was working Enterprise car sales in Milford, Connecticut, quit my job and went out and auditioned in Las Vegas. They chose me out of, I don't know, like 1,000 other people they invited to in-person audition. And thank God they chose me, and that kicked off a 12 or 13-year wrestling career.
So, for those who don't know, Tough Enough was a reality TV series where they would bring in folks and then to try out for the WWE. And as they tried out every single week, much like Survivor, one person would be, would no longer be there, and either they'd be kicked off because they weren't good enough, or if they had an injury during the training, that would be something that would cause them to not be able to continue. And you were not kicked off, were you? You had an injury while you were taping Tough Enough, right?
Yeah, about halfway through our season, they really stretched it out, because if you watch it through the series, I'm like on episode 5 or 6 that I finally have to leave the show due to my injury. But I was hurt like maybe a month and a half before that. But they couldn't keep me on with an injury because it's not fair to the other contestants. Right. But they said, you really showed a lot of promise. And the potential. So, Al Snow, I remember telling me, like, hey, don't be surprised if you get a call. Don't give up on your dream on this. Mm-hmm. But in my head, I was starting to give up. I'm like, damn, this was my one shot. I blew it. And then I get a call a month after being home from Jim Ross. Mm-hmm. And he's like, well, son, apparently did enough good work on Tough Enough that people want to look at you again. How's your knee? I'm like, I'm doing okay. I ended up only having to get a small ortho procedure on it. And I'm good to go. I'm squatting again. Everything's fine. And so I get invited to a tryout camp at Heartland Championship Wrestling, mm-hmm. which was one of WWE's former developmental territories, where they would sign you to a contract and teach you the craft and owning your skills of being a pro wrestler and learning your characters. So, one, I impressed them enough at that tryout camp with my limited knowledge. Had other huge stars there like AJ Styles, Tomko, Rene Dupree, Kevin Furtick, who went on to be Mordecai. Trying to think who else. There's other bigger stars there, but mainly AJ Styles was the biggest star. And long story short, they signed me to a contract, a WWE developmental contract. And then after about, a year and a half so of training in Ohio Valley Wrestling, another WWE developmental company, that's where I came up with the Blueprint character, the Blueprint Matt Morgan. They bring me up to TV onto SmackDown. And then from there, I went on to WWE and TNA wrestling throughout my career.
So just like in school, you impressed everybody. You impressed Mr. McMahon when you saw him in the gym. You mentioned Al Snow. He was basically like the Jeff Probst of Tough Enough, or one of the Jeff Probst of Tough Enough. Jim Ross, the director of human resources, the equivalent of director of human resources. You impressed him. And to Ohio Valley, and that's like Jim Cornette. So everybody that's important in the industry, you went, you saw, and you impressed. So again, everything you've done so far is a meteoric rise to the top. It may have taken you a little longer because of an injury here and an injury there, but you've gone straight to the top and gotten everything you wanted to do. You get signed by WWE. You call your mom, and what do you say?
I was a little pessimistic still, mm-hmm. because WWE, they could release you at any given time at any 90-day period back then. Even if you had a long-term contract, doesn't matter. They could still release you from it every 90 days. So what I did is I'm like, Mom, I'm signed. I can't believe this. I got to bring the contract to, my mom used to work at a bank, and we got to get it notarized. We got to have an attorney look at it. So we did all that. But then the, pessimistic part of me was, I told Larissa, who was she wasn't my wife yet. We were engaged to be married, that I'm going to move down to Kentucky. Let me get a feel for this for 6 months, and I'll have an honest opinion and evaluation if I think I can take this to the next level and get on a SmackDown or a Monday Night Raw and make a career out of this. Because I'd hate to move us both from our jobs in Connecticut to Kentucky, and then I flame out in 3 months.
Right.
So we did that. She ended up moving down there once I saw like Jim Cornette and all these other people in Ohio Valley Wrestling that thought highly of me. Jim Ross would come down and evaluate us once a month at a time. Same thing. They made it look like I had a golden ticket, honest to God. So I had much more faith in myself eventually. And then my wife moved down, and that the rest is history.
For those of the listeners who don't know exactly the toughness that wrestling is, they think it's just acting. They think it's Cirque du Soleil with a plot. Can you explain what professional wrestling is and how intense, physically and mentally intense it is to be a professional wrestler?
It's very tough to be a professional wrestler because, one, there's no off season. You're working every week of the year, every month of the year, all year round. Again, the only off season you have is if you get injured, and you don't want to get injured because then you get paid less money. So right then and there, it starts to train you. If you get injured, you don't want to miss time out of the ring with that injury if you can work around it somehow. And we would work around it because we're on the road 4 to 5 days of every week, of every month, of every year. Keep that in mind. And so the toughness part is that you have to work around your injuries, and it trains you to work around your injuries if you want to make the most money there at the time. This is a long time ago, keep in mind. We're talking 2002, 2003, 2004-ish. Right. And so the other part of it is that you're a new guy coming into a company with a lot of veterans that don't like that new guys are coming into their company and taking their spots on television either. So it's mentally tough as well as physically tough, because every single time, if you've never watched wrestling before, I'm sure you've seen when a guy gets punched, how the guy lands perfectly flat on his back every single time. That's called a back bump. That's what we call it in pro wrestling, where we train thousands of hours of slamming our back at the mat 100 miles an hour with all of our weight to try to land as flat as possible and make the ring make the biggest noise it can make, because underneath the ring is nothing but plank boards and plywood. So, and steel beams underneath those pieces of wood. There's a little bit of foam under the wrestling mat. That's it.
Tell me about the level of trust that if you're in a one-on-one match with someone, what is the level of trust that you have to have? You mentioned some of the veterans would be like, who's this young kid who's 7 feet, 300 some odd pounds going to take my space or take my spot? What is that level of trust that you have to have with your opponent and that they have to have with you, a young kid starting out?
I got to be honest, they were more scared of me than I was them. Because think about it, Jim Cornette, people don't know, a very, very historic name in pro wrestling, one of the greatest managers of all time, in my opinion. But early in my career, he used to call me a puppy with big paws, meaning career-wise, I'm going to grow into my greenness and my size.
Right.
And he was right, but what it also does, it intimidates other wrestlers that are veterans, have been there 15, 20 years, and they see my big butt on the card against them that night. Some of them are going to be nervous that, is this guy so green, he might accidentally hurt me.
Because, for instance, if someone is conducting a move on the other person, it's not, it's ballet in a degree where...
Yeah, you cooperate with each other without looking like you're cooperating with each other.
Right. But there really is a lot of real pain involved in all of this, and sort of describe some of that real pain and some of the injuries that you had. And honestly, let's talk about how you dealt with those injuries.
Sure. So... simple. Believe it or not, you think as a former college basketball player, my knees would be my issue, especially foreshadowing, on my season of Tough Enough, the reality show that finally got me signed to a contract, right? Well, no, I never had any real big issues in pro wrestling. It was always my lower back. And my first lower back injury started like a month in, maybe a few weeks in, training for the very first time in Ohio Valley Wrestling, again, WWE's minor leagues at the time, where they were still training and teaching me how to become a pro wrestler and work on my blueprint character at the time. And I ended up getting these back spasms early on. It just kept getting worse and more intense. And I did not want to miss time because the rumor was I was going to be called up fairly quickly. Called up meaning called up to WWE SmackDown or WWE Monday Night Raw at the time.
The major leagues, from the minor leagues to the major leagues.
There you go. Perfectly said. And I don't want to miss my chance. I'm not going to miss my opportunity and have somebody else take my spot because I wasn't ready because of a dumb injury. Well, slowly but surely, I started seeing guys in the locker room. When one of the guys would come in with some painkillers, they'd like shake it up, and everybody would like follow the guy into a room and go get just like a Pied Piper. It was crazy, and I never understood that. In fact, to be fair, my first episode of having back spasms from overtraining, I gave my prescription to the guys, the veterans that were in Ohio Valley Wrestling at the time, thinking, wow, they're really going to like me now because they seem to like these pills. I think they're stupid. To my head, painkillers were nothing different from Tylenol or ibuprofen. In my head, I didn't know the difference because I had never taken them before.
Right.
So my first prescription I gave away, but that was probably stupid because, of course, my back gets way worse. And Jim Ross was coming down to evaluate us. They just opened the brand new Danny Davis Arena in Louisville, Kentucky for OVW minor leagues, right? But they were having major WWE stars on the card with us. So if I remember this correct, John Cena was brought back right before he became and took off to be a huge star. Brock Lesnar was there. It's my first time meeting Brock. He just had become the heavyweight champion at the time, who was there. And they're all kind of like, they all talk, right? So if you do well, they're going to go up to the main roster and tell everybody about this Matt Morgan kid, right? So I didn't want to miss that match I had on that very important card. I think it was me and Mark Henry as a tag team versus Tomko, who was Christian's bodyguard, and Seven, who went on to become Mordecai, Kevin Furtick.
Got it.
And I had a really good showing for myself for being so green. When I got backstage after the match, everybody was very happy with it. But my back kept getting worse, and I couldn't miss wrestling practice that upcoming week. So I finally, for my second bottle of prescription pills, I didn't give them away. I actually started taking them. And because I'm stupid, I'm Matt Morgan. I'm big and tall. I'm stronger and heavier than everybody. So when it says take one every 4 hours, they really mean take two or three, because I'm triple the size of the average guy the doctor's writing the prescription for, surely. Again, and this is very foreshadowing of what arrogance gets involved here. My own arrogance. I start feeling, no joke, maybe 2 or 3 days in taking these painkillers and increasing the dosage every time. I start to feel like this floaty feeling, a good floaty feeling, an energetic, super duper energetic feeling. If anybody's ever had ephedrine before, this feels like ephedrine times 1,000, where with a bad back and spasm, I was able to go work out in the gym for 4 hours straight. I could go to wrestling practice for 4 hours, not be winded, have no pain in my back, because that was being masked by my ridiculous amount of painkillers I was abusing. But that's how quick it took me. I'm not exaggerating. I want to say maybe after my first week of taking these painkillers, hydrocodone and oxycodone specifically, I was fully hooked. For the next 5 years, 5 years straight, I was what you'd call a functioning addict, where nobody could tell anything was wrong with me. I wasn't drooling on myself. I wasn't like looking like this and red eyes and screwed up. If anything, I looked at hyperactive and had a lot of energy. That's about it. And so this became my super pill. I'm watching guys that use steroids, and I'm like, well, what my only big bad hitch is that I'm taking painkillers. I'm better than that, which again, my ego, arrogance. And so again, 5 years, this was my dosage routine.
What 5 years are we talking about, basically? What time frame?
2002, whenever I signed with WWE.
Okay.
I started in WW. I hope I'm remembering that correctly. 2002. It was like a 4 to 5 year window, though, for sure. Every single day, every 4 hours around the clock, I was taking anywhere from 80 to 100, and at the worst, 120 milligrams worth of hydro or oxycodone pills. That's horrible. Any one of those dosages could have killed me at any time. And I don't know how I got through it, but I without dying, because I had overdosed 7 times, not on purpose, but by increasing my dosage to keep chasing that high. And what it normally does to people is it usually makes them lethargic and tired and want to go to sleep. And yeah, it masks your pain. But for me and how it responded to my brain, okay, how my brain responded to it, I should say, was it was a huge upper, an immense upper. And so it really made it hard not to want to do it. I was super addicted to it. I couldn't get out of bed without it, let alone not work without it. So every time you see me in a WWE ring, I'm high. You can't tell, but I am. And finally, I'm on tour 4 to 5 years into my addiction. Again, every 4 hours around the clock, taking 80 to 120 milligrams worth of this stuff. Okay, overdosing 7 times, not on purpose, right?
Right.
Keep that all in mind. We're on tour now in Italy, and for the first time in that whole 4 to 5 year window, I finally ran out of my painkillers. And now I'm in Italy, stuck, where, a lot of them didn't speak English, and what they had over there was not the same as these pills, and nothing I tried did the same thing for me. So I started going through withdrawal for the first time, and I'm in my hotel bathroom, and brother, I'm violently throwing up bad to where I have nothing left in my stomach, and it's now acid and it's blood now coming up. Yeah. And I'm thinking, shoot, this is it. I'm dead. This is how it ends for me. In an Italian bathroom. I'm like, so you think, Mike, that would for sure, that would make me snap out of it and say, you need help. Nope. I had the genius idea to start banging on all my fellow wrestlers that I'm on tour with in Italy on all their doors. one by one, asking if any of them had painkillers, the usual suspects of guys that I know for a fact.
Right.
I've seen in the locker room use these pills of their own, so I know they have them. And I remember saying, hey, listen, is there anything, if you give me, a pill, I'll double whatever you give me when we get back to the States. I promise you, I just ran out and I need some for the next 3 days. One by one, they all just closed it. They look at me. And I remember one of them, I'm not going to mention his name, looked up at me and just holds his nose like, Matt, oh my God, you smell like puke. I'm like, gee, you don't say. It was like violent blood that I just threw up all over my chest. I'm wearing a tank top. It's all over my chest and on my shirt. And I'm like, that's why I need help. I need some pills if you can help me out. And like, oh, no, sorry, man, I would. I saw you out, brother, but I ran out too. Oh, can you believe that? I'm like, yeah. Right.
So were they saying this, you think, because they knew that they wanted you to hit rock bottom, or were they saying this because they had three left and didn't want to give up one?
No,
right.
No way. Let's not make them. No way. Hell no. It's because I used to do the same myself. Mm-hmm. When you had your pills, you planned them all out accordingly and how long they would last for.
Yeah.
So you're not the guy that now runs out and goes to withdrawal, right? So no, they just did it to be stingy, and I'm grateful they were. Because I probably could still be addicted. Who knows? Had they not, or I'd definitely be long dead by now.
During that time frame, early 2000s, it was well known about the effects of steroids, Lil-Zato, and all that. But was it well known worldwide and in the general community about the negative impacts of what's that?
No.
Yeah.
Painkillers?
Yeah.
Hell no. No way. In fact, I'll never blame a doctor for my addiction, ever, even though I would doctor shop, meaning I would see multiple doctors and get, 180 Percocets. I see a different doctor, get 180 hydrocodones or oxycodones. And that should last me well long enough. But because I was taking so many, it wouldn't. So I'd have to do it that way. And back then, they didn't have a centralized computer system at these pharmacies like they do, thank God, now. Because that's the quickest way to spot it now. And same with your insurances. You would use your insurance for one of the medications, and I pay cash out of pocket for the other two over the counter at mom and pop pharmacies. Again, chasing this high, it gets very annoying. But listen, let me finish this because this is the most important part. I would argue, Mike, is after all those wrestlers closed the door on their hotel room doors on me, do you think that would be my rock bottom? But no, not yet. No. I'm now going to go downstairs to the level below us, which, by the way, Mike, there's no wrestlers staying down there. This is randos that are probably on their honeymoon, that are, there for a family function, trying to, have a great time with their wives or whoever they're there with, their families. And here's Neanderthal man banging on your door. Mm-hmm. You look through the peephole. I'm 7 feet. I'm wearing a tank top, muscle shirt. I'm about 340 at the time and jacked. Would you open your door if you look through the peephole? All you see is a chest with blood on the chest, mind you. And this poor Italian couple opens the door. This is the only first one I knocked on. The rest of them didn't answer, but one did. And before I knew it, security there, because the guy didn't understand what I was asking him. Mm-hmm. Obviously, I'm speaking English. He's trying to speak Italian. Probably scared out of his mind now that I think back. Thinking like, what was I thinking? Thinking like a random stranger was just going to have painkillers on him. And here you go, stranger Matt Morgan. But that's how bad the addiction was. I wanted to get out of this withdrawal field because it was killing me. And finally, after seeing I had no way to get around this, nobody can get me any pills. I can't get them while I'm out here. I called my wife. She starts crying on the phone because I told her she knew I needed help. And asked her, once I get home, you got to come. This is back in the day. You can come pick somebody up at the gate when they get off the plane back then. So I might come to the gate, grab me by the hand. We're not grabbing my bag at the baggage claim because I'm going to try to used car sales you to death that everything's fine. It's a 9-hour flight back. It's going to give me enough time to sleep and hopefully get through my withdrawal a little bit. But when I get there, I'm going to be super cranky, irritable, and I'm going to manipulate you, and I'm going to go get painkillers. So do not let me do any of that.
Right.
You've got to get me to treatment right from the airport, right from the gate. And to her credit, that she did. She brought me to a Center for Drug-Free Living in downtown Orlando is what it was called at the time. I admitted, and I would say about my first week, second week in, I knew I was done with this garbage. I knew I was. And I got very competitive with my sobriety. And that's how I've stayed clean 19 and a half years later.
So Larissa saved your life.
As far as not knowing me well enough to know my addiction's going to try to use car sales her, that everything's fine. I was just joking on the phone, just playing.
Right.
Yeah, she did. Definitely.
And I want to get into your rebuild, but just tell me a little bit about how, and fortunately at the time, it was just the two of you. You didn't have a son at the time. How did that impact your addiction, impact your marriage and your family life with the rest of your family as well? Or did you hide it all from them?
I hid it all from my family. Only my wife was the only one to know that I took it. In fact, I didn't even tell my parents when I went into rehab until I got out.
Right.
About my addiction. But I mean, that's a better question served for Larissa, because in my head, no, because everything was great. I was making the most money I'd ever made in my life at that time. We were doing really good saving money that I was earning at that time. I was better to be around because I was always happy, right? I wasn't moody. I was always high, 24/7. So no, I don't think it never really did anything toward our relationship bad, honestly, except the most important part, which was she wants me alive.
Right. She loves you. She wants you to stick
Right.
around. When we come back, we're going to learn about how Matt learned to overcome his addiction, as well as learn to move forward with grit, grace, and growth. We'll be right back.
Tell me something good.
On the next, Bearing Scars. We all have secrets, even those who you least expect.
And nobody knows about it. Like, no one. I am constantly in angst about someone finding out.
For the first time ever, Navy veteran and president of the Chamber of Commerce, Bridget Lake, reveals hers.
PCP took me down in 6 months. I mean, I was really just trying to slowly kill myself.
Until one night, on the streets of downtown Chicago, her addiction had a disastrous and deadly impact.
I ended up in the hospital, cuffed to a bed. They said, "Do you even know why you're here?" The officer in the room. And he threw the Chicago Tribune on me. And I'm like, first page. Kills 2-month-old baby boy. Prison makes you hard. I needed to change. It's gotta change. There's no way or I'm dead.
Bridget vowed to rebuild her life, give back to her community, and redefine her legacy.
And I was so grateful. They changed my life.
Bearing Scars is available at all major podcast platforms and at bearingscars.com.
You never fail until you stop trying.
Scars, scars. Enjoy your scars.
Welcome back to Bearing Scars. Our guest today is Matt Morgan. You know him as a professional wrestler. You heard all about what he did and how he went up through professional wrestling, going to the Royal Rumble, Survivor Series, SummerSlam, being through all of the biggest events in professional wrestling. We didn't even talk about his time as an American Gladiator, where he was on TV for that, or even his acting career. But what we did talk about was how he had an issue with oxycodone and painkillers, and how he overcame them through some time in a place called Center for Independent Living, which was a rehab facility.
It was like going to prison without being put in prison. And I say that respectfully. The place is no longer around, so
Right.
I'm not talking negatively, because the place saved my life. But I was surrounded by people that were court ordered to be there, not there on their own voluntarily, wants, like I was there. I was there voluntarily. And so it was good for me to see what could happen in my future if I don't nip this in the bud now, before I start breaking the law and doing bad, evil things to get my painkillers one day. Because that you could see is always going to be the next step down the path, no matter how rich you are, how much money you have. And more importantly, I was blessed to have a roommate that was a former Harvard professor.
Wow.
That had lost his tenure. He lost his family. He was homeless, legit homeless. I'll never forget him. He had a pair of glasses where he couldn't even afford the thing that on the sides that would hold your glasses up on one of the sides. He couldn't even afford that. He was homeless. He lost everything. And it was good to have him as my roommate, his testimony of what he had lost. I'm like, Matt, this is smacking you in the face. The Lord is blessing you with this. Is going to be you if you don't fix this now.
Have you talked to him recently?
No. He had left before I was willing to leave. I stayed the full length of stay that I was covered for. He did not. He ended up getting out of there early, and
Don't know.
he didn't have a phone. He never had a phone, nothing.
It's kind of amazing how in life, and you mentioned your journey with Christ, and through life, certain people come into your life for a reason, and you know, perhaps he was there in your life for the reason of showing you your future or what could be your future.
I believe that.
You get out of rehab. How is the process of getting out and rebuilding your life and saying to yourself, I may have the same profession, but I'm not going to be the same man that I was before I went into rehab?
That was the hardest part. It's easy, not easy, but it's less hard not to use if you're inside of a structured environment where you know you can't get your hands on this stuff and this garbage and these drugs or alcohol if you're an alcoholic, let's say. The real work begins when you get out, where now it's unlimited, where you can go and now go get it if you wanted to and relapse. And so I got intensive outpatient treatment where I meet with an addiction specialist 3 times a week, along with going to Narcotics Anonymous. They say do 90 meetings in 90 days. I did 180 meetings in 90 days, 2 days.
Overachiever.
Well, because I got very competitive with it, like a sport. I treated this. And one time my addiction counselor says to me in intensive outpatient services, he goes, just remember, if you relapse, Matt, it's not the end of the world. We can get you back on the horse again. It's not the end of the world. I remember going, why would you tell me that? Don't tell me that. Don't even put that in my head.
Right.
No. And he goes, Matt, well, I got to be honest with you, because I've been doing this for close to 30, 40 years. He was a senior citizen. He's no longer with us now. His name was Dr. Ehrlich. And Dr. Ehrlich says to me, he's like, Matt, I have not had a patient that's not relapsed on this type of level of addiction that you have. He's like, so I'm just trying to be straight with you here, that you have to trust me. I can get you back on the horse and back on the wagon if you relapse. I don't want you getting down and go down the funnel and keep using and not try to get your sobriety back. And I go, well, bet I'm going to be your first that has never relapsed. And I just got that locked in my head that I'm going to prove these people wrong, even though these people were on my side. Let me be clear. He's one of my biggest opponents I ever had in my life. I took a whole year off from the wrestling business because I knew I was not strong enough to go back to a locker room where there's other painkiller addicts like myself that are functioning, some less functioning addicts. I wouldn't be strong enough to be around it just yet. And so I take that year off, go through a lot of the money I had earned over the years, right? Me and my wife were still renting. She wasn't working at the time either. And then finally she got a job. And then finally after a year, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to go back. And I went back to the wrestling business and joined a company called TNA Pro Wrestling, which back in the day was WWE's rival at the time, or a secondary company that you could work for and make a good living. I ended up miraculously signing with this company where I made more money than I did while I was at WWE, and sober, keep in mind, going on for a 7-year run with that company, working in, I think, 7 or 8 pay-per-view main events with TNA Pro Wrestling. And I would argue I made a bigger name for myself in that company. But the best part, Mike, is I was sober every single day, and still 19 and a half years later today.
That's amazing, because going back into the field and the environment and the locker room that introduced you to that, and some of the same people, I'm sure, because you know there's some crossover in folks as they cross the line into TNA from WWE or in the other direction, and so you had some of that the same folks that were. Temptation must have been through the roof. That temptation when it was there, what stopped it? What
that year of me being sober, that full year of getting right with myself. When you have a full year of sobriety, that is a long time in sober years. That first year takes forever to get there for that 1 year. But once you have it under your belt, that's where the confidence was. It wasn't like, oh, I'll never relapse, I'm so cool, and get cocky about it. No, but very competitive about it. And more importantly, I would argue, it also would help me keep me clean. I started to get the boys in the locker room clean, some of them. If they were willing to share with me or come to me and say, hey, how did you get clean? Like, how are you not? You're in pain right now, Matt. I saw you hurt your back again. How are you not using painkillers? And I'm like, because I've got it in my head that I'm never going to touch a painkiller ever again. I've had root canals. I've broken my nose. I've done worse things. I had back surgery. Wow. They didn't put fentanyl in me before preparing me to get my back cut open. And I didn't take painkillers when I was done with it either. And I just did back surgery 2.5 years ago. I didn't touch a painkiller. Because again, you get that will within your head When I go talk to these kids in their schools and I talk to them about my addiction, trials and tribulations, I just can look at them in the eyes and tell them the damn truth. I have never touched one single painkiller in 19 and a half years as of today, right? So I need that to be true. Otherwise, a lot of my life is not what I say it is. If that makes sense.
It makes perfect sense. And you say as of today, this podcast is going to be available for years to come. And I have a feeling that as of today will still be germane in 15 years when someone's listening to this podcast on whichever platforms are still available then. So, you're talking to these kids. Do you find they think the only reason you got to the top was because of your ability to withstand the pain by way of the drugs, and therefore, how can you talk to me about this? How do you sort of separate that?
The last 7 years of my career, had more action figures made of me, was in more video games, made way more money, again, main evented more pay-per-views with this company, TNA, than I did when I was with WWE during my addiction years. The list goes on. And I would argue I was in more pain when I was at TNA because I was wrestling more for them. And so that's the proof in the pudding. I was under way more pain when I was at TNA and never had to touch a painkiller and still kept climbing the ladder and getting more and more famous in that company, or bigger name in the wrestling business, I should say, at that time than I did, I would argue, than I was with WWE.
And had you not taken the painkillers while you were a member of the WWE roster, where do you think you may have gone? Do you think that the painkillers caused you to your career to short circuit in the WWE, or do you think that
it would have been what it would have been with or without him, in my opinion? Yeah.
Now, once you rebounded, once you're now clean, what in your head got you to say, I need to now start leaning into doing something else with my life?
Let me be clear. I thought I'd be wrestling until my 50s. I'm 49 as of today, and I thought I would be one of those lifers that wrestled forever, as long as I could remain healthy. But I'll never forget this. So I was set up to go back to WWE. In January of 2014, I was going to be re-debuting with my contract with TNA. When I was at TNA, 3 different times WWE contacted me when my contracts were going to be up, my 3 separate contracts with TNA throughout the years there. And every time they wanted me to come back. And I felt more loyal to TNA because they took a shot on me. The owner, Dixie Carter, was proud I was a recovering addict and would have me go talk to kids' schools at a time when you'd have to be hush-hush and quiet about your addiction if you were an active pro wrestler. I was the first pro wrestler that was actively on television at the time talking about their drug addiction. Usually it was wrestlers like Jeff Hardy then started talking about it years after.
Right.
But we're talking 2007. No pro wrestler that was active on television weekly was able to talk about their recovery the way I did. I did commercials on it, PSAs, I should say, and then went into kids' schools thanks to Dixie Carter, the former owner of TNA. She believed in me, and that gave me a lot of confidence in my sobriety that I could keep wrestling and be sober. So I was very loyal to her and that company because of that. They also allowed me to go shoot American Gladiators while I was still under contract with TNA. So again, I'm very loyal to them. Now, 7 years go by. And finally, I'd done everything I could at TNA except for win the World Heavyweight Championship. They had me wrestle for like 1,009 different times, and I'd always come up short. And WWE's calling me back. I'm going to go back. And so 2014, January, Royal Rumble, I was supposed to be one of those unannounced secrets to re-debut at WWE, and they were going to let me call myself the Blueprint Matt Morgan, which was incredible to me. I had my boots, newly Blueprint trunks made, knee pads, boots. Well, January 14th of 2014, about a week and a half before I'm set to re-debut for WWE, my son Jackson Morgan's born. And I'm holding him in the delivery room for the very first time, Mike. Swear to God is my witness on this. That's the day the switch goes off in my head. I'm done. Check, please. Turn off the switch to Matt's wrestling career. It's time for me to be a dad. I begged the Lord to be a dad for 12 years up to this point. My wife and I went through 7 bouts of IVF with ICSI, the most expensive procedure you could possibly go through. At the time, it was like $20,000 a pop. We did it 7 times over those years. None of them worked. And now she's naturally pregnant and now giving birth. And I'm holding my boy for the first time. And I'm like, time for me to be a dad. And from there, I would say maybe not too long into Jackson being about a year. She was diagnosed as being nonverbal autistic right before turning 3 years old. When that happened, That's when I decided I wanted to use my platform as a former pro wrestler, as a former American Gladiator, and whatever people want to call me, and use it for good and try to help our community. And at first it was about special needs and neurodiversity, like my son. What kind of programs do we have here? Can I be an outlet for people to where to go? And then same thing with getting people into recovery and wanting to get people sober. And then more and more neighbors were like, you need to run for office here in Longwood. You'd be perfect for it. I'm like, I have no political background. That would make no sense.
Longwood's the city in which you live, right? You lived at the time,
Yeah.
right? And you still live now, city of Longwood.
Still live
Okay.
here now. Yep. Still serving the great city of Longwood as a city commissioner. Yep. Three-time mayor. But more importantly, this feeling all comes that you want to serve your community, because how blessed was I being wanted to be a pro wrestler, got to be, like you said it best early in this interview, Mike. Everything I wanted to be, I got to become legitimately. A lot of people exaggerate and they become attorneys one day, which is an incredible profession, but really they wanted to be the first baseman of the New York Yankees or the New York Mets, right? Or the starting center for the Bulls under the Jordan era, right? That's their real dreams. Not many of them are legitimately telling the truth. And they say, this was my dream since I was 5 or 6 years old. Wrestling was legitimately my dream since I was 5 or 6, and I got to live it out. And I almost screwed it up, overdosing 7 times by increasing my dosages of painkillers due to my nasty addiction at the time. Okay. And then I get my sobriety back on track. I'm clean and I get to become an American Gladiator. And now the biggest gift I begged God of all of it for was to be a dad. And now I'm a dad. I owe so much to the Lord and to the universe and to anybody that needs help. And so that's this feeling of why I've ran for public office. It's why I'm a staunch supporter, and my wife and I both creating the first autism walk in Seminole County history, creating outlets for other people to have children like my son Jackson. We give them all the materials they need, the people who to contact, what insurance is best, things like that. We don't get paid to do any of that. We do it because, again, I feel like we owe it to people because of how much the Lord reached down and pulled me out of the hellhole that I was heading for with my addiction. Mm-hmm. And here we are now.
When we come back, we're going to hear what Matt's doing for his future, and we're going to hear some of his resilience routines to overcome any times that he feels that he needs to really engage that resilience. We'll be right back. This episode of Bearing Scars is sponsored by DSP Safety and Promotional Products. They're your one-stop shop for all your industrial, safety, and promotional product needs. CEO Scott Sturgill says, give us a try and you'll be a customer for life. Find them online at durablesafety.com.
Are you addicted to drugs? Narcotics Anonymous can help. We are recovering addicts who meet regularly to help each other stay clean. We are not interested in what or how much you used, what you have done in the past, but only in what you want to do about your problem and how we can help. If you are like us, you know that 1 is too many and 1,000 never enough. Find a new way to live. Visit us at na.org today.
Scars, scars, enjoy your scars.
Today, we're with Matt Morgan, former professional wrestler and now community leader in Central Florida. Matt, welcome back to Bearing Scars. What are you doing now?
So still an elected city commissioner here in the city of Longwood. Mm-hmm. I said earlier, I was elected 3 different times, 2017, re-elected 2020, re-elected this past 2024. Sorry, that's a mouthful. And my other job is I work getting people into drug and alcohol treatment every single day for a place called Orlando Recovery Center in Orlando, as well as the Recovery Village that's located in Umatilla and another location on Palm Beach.
When you're talking with some of these folks, do you find that they are so enamored with your past as a professional wrestler that helps them to either stay in or choose to come in? And how does that help?
It definitely helps, but I could say I pinned Hulk Hogan with my foot on his chest and won the World Heavyweight Championship at WrestleMania 1. It won't come close to when I share with them, P.S. I'm a 19-and-a-half-year recovered addict myself. Mm-hmm. So these steps you're about to walk through, that door you're going to walk through, that I know you're terrified of walking through. I was deathified of it. It's what put me off for years and made me use for those 4 to 5 years. I was terrified of withdrawal. So I know what you're about to go through, but I swear to God, you can do this. and I'll be with you every step of the way. You have my cell phone. You could call me every day while you're in there. If you need someone to talk to, if you need a sponsor, I have a lot of people I'm sponsoring, but I'll do it for you too. And give them the confidence that they need because they're talking to somebody who's been through it. Well, I used to win game when people would tell me I would need treatment, and other doctors like, Matt, these are a lot of pills I'm giving you. It's like the fifth month in a row to give an issue here. I would ignore it and be like, what do you know? You're not an addict yourself. How do you know what it feels like to go through withdrawal? And I would rationalize that to continue to use. Well, that game runs out when you're with me because I'm an addict. I've gone through this. And so when they're nervous like that, that's the best. I can explain that high that I get of being able to be a part of their plan of getting them their life back. And then hearing from them maybe 6 months later, if they lost contact with me and don't need my help anymore, let's say, and I hear how great their life is, or a year later or 2 years later, there's no feeling on the planet like that. So at the end of the day, ironically enough, as a former pro wrestler, I would argue that's my heavyweight championship.
So, Matt Morgan, what are some of your resilience routines, things that help to keep you sane during the times when you may feel a little tempted to not be?
It depends it depends on where it's coming from. And if it's something that's causing me that mental stress, my release is definitely the gym. It is definitely riding bikes around the block with my son, Jackson, or being on the ice with him, or being on the baseball field with him. And lastly, what I said earlier, actually, and I just realized that I was saying it to you, ironically, Mike, is that when I'm helping other people get their lives back, again, nothing can hurt me there. Nothing. I don't care what I got going on. If something personal is happening, professionally is happening, whatever it is. Pales in comparison, it all flies off me, bounces right off me. Okay, like a suit of armor when I'm in the act and being on the phone or with them in person and getting somebody into treatment. It's the best. I cannot say this enough. It really is.
So helping other people has become your new painkiller.
Yeah. That's a really great way to say it, actually, Aaron. Yeah, it really is. And it's that high. It's replaced that same high, if that makes sense.
It does. If people want to get in contact with you, either to ask you to be their sponsor or just to get in contact with you, how can folks get in contact with Matt Morgan?
If you need any kind of help whatsoever, if you need substance use disorder, detox, residential, intensive outpatient, normal outpatient, even telehealth, or I'll even throw another one at you. Let's say you have no addiction, but you have anxiety disorders, depression disorders. We also have a mental health primary level of care for residential as well. And the best way to contact me, you can contact my cell phone legitimately, 407-340-8548. Again, Matt Morgan, 407-340-8548. And I will find a way to get you treatment. Even if you have no insurance, I will find a way to match your needs with a facility that's willing to work with you and get you in and help get your life back. Don't be scared to do this, guys, because right now I'm telling you, it might not seem it. If you're drinking, you're drugging, or maybe you have those anxiety and depression disorders, or schizophrenia even potentially, right now, you're not driving that wheel. All right? The mental health primary is, the drug addiction is, the alcoholism is, that's driving your wheel right now. Now's the time. When people say, hey, I'm ready, you don't always know. I don't believe in that. I think when we go into treatment for the first time, we're not really ready because we still would ultimately like to keep using, but something happened to make us not want to do it, right? So when people say, oh, I'm just not ready yet, I don't believe in that. I believe that nobody's ready when they first go in. So if you're thinking like, oh, next week, I think I'm ready. No, it's today. Today, it's your turn to stop riding shotgun, knock the drugs over that's been driving your steering wheel throughout life, and grab that wheel by both hands and let me help you with it, please.
Stick around for the feature we call Scar Tissue.
Tell me something good.
On the next, Bearing Scars. We all have secrets, even those who you least expect.
And nobody knows about it. Like, no one. I am constantly in angst about someone finding out.
For the first time ever, Navy veteran and president of the Chamber of Commerce, Bridget Lake, reveals hers.
PCP took me down in 6 months. I mean, I was really just trying to slowly kill myself.
Until one night, on the streets of downtown Chicago, her addiction had a disastrous and deadly impact.
I ended up in the hospital, cuffed to a bed. They said, "Do you even know why you're here?" The officer in the room. And he threw the Chicago Tribune on me. And I'm like, first page. Kills 2-month-old baby boy. Prison makes you hard. I needed to change. It's gotta change. There's no way or I'm dead.
Bridget vowed to rebuild her life, give back to her community, and redefine her legacy.
And I was so grateful. They changed my life.
Bearing Scars is available at all major podcast platforms and at bearingscars.com.
You never fail until you stop trying.
Enjoy your scars, scars, scars. Enjoy your scars.
And now, scar tissue. Of course, you know scar tissue is what's left behind after we've borne our scars and worked to rehabilitate ourselves and redefine our life's work. And like most athletes, Matt Morgan has scars. And you've got to remember, in the careers that he chose, everything about Matt, his body and his body of work, screamed, "Look at me." But after years of addiction, Matt clearly took a hard look at himself and didn't like what he saw. Matt saw a man in himself who was adored and admired by so many strangers. But he knew the truth behind all of the titles and all of the championships, and he knew that he had to change. You know, his decision to sacrifice the one career that he had dreamt of his entire life and the thing that had brought him fame, fortune, and glory in order to take care of himself is an extremely powerful and brave thing that he did. And one thing that cannot be overstated in Matt's recovery story is the word love. There was love from his wife, Larissa, to Matt, from Matt to Larissa, and from both of them to their son, Jackson. It doesn't take a 7-foot body. It takes a giant of a man to be a dad like Matt Morgan is to his son, and a husband like he is to his wife, Larissa, and a friend like he is to so many of his former compatriots in the locker room. For those of us who have been in a locker room, we know that there is a mentality to a locker room where you don't expose a weakness. Well, Matt proudly exposed his weakness, and he made it accessible and allowable for others in that locker room that he shared to expose their weaknesses, to come up and talk to him, and perhaps get clean themselves with the assistance of Matt. And if you're not a professional wrestler or an American Gladiator or a city commissioner or a mayor or a government official or any of the things that Matt currently is, and you need help, Matt is offered to help you as well. Through his work, as well as just giving him a call. He gave you his phone number, his cell number, in this interview. Just like our previous guest, Desmond Meade, Matt Morgan, myself, our future guests, we all want you to succeed and overcome any of those issues that you think are holding you back. Check out our website, bearingscars.com. There's links to all of our guests, and contact whichever one touches you the most and is most in line with the issues that you think you might be having or may be able to help you. You see, Bearing Scars isn't just a program about exposing things that the guests have done in their past. It's about helping you to overcome anything you may have in your present so you can have an amazing future.